September 19th, 1944, 06:15 hours, near Arracourt, eastern France. The morning fog hung thick over the Lorraine countryside as the Panthers of the 113th Panzer Brigade advanced toward their objectives. At approximately 06:20 hours, lead elements encountered enemy tank destroyers of an unknown type. Through the mist, German tank crews heard a sound they had never encountered before, a high-pitched engine whine, almost like an aircraft. Low silhouettes materialized from the fog, fired rapid salvos, and vanished before German gunners could even traverse their heavy turrets to engage. The entire attack pattern lasted less than 20 seconds per engagement. In those first few minutes, 3 Panthers were lost. The enemy vehicles demonstrated exceptional mobility, engaging our tanks at ranges of 400 to 800 meters before rapidly displacing. Across the battlefield that morning, 39 German tanks of the 113th Panzer Brigade were about to discover a terrifying truth. The Americans had built a tank destroyer that could reach 55 miles per hour, faster than any tracked armored vehicle in existence. The German Doctrine assumed all tank destroyers would be slow, heavily armored fortresses, like their own Jagdpanthers. The M18 Hellcat, however, was designed around a completely different philosophy: speed as armor, mobility as survival, and agility as lethality. The mathematics of tank combat were about to be completely rewritten. A German Panther's turret needed 18 to 60 seconds for full rotation, depending on engine speed. In stark contrast, the Hellcat's hydraulic turret could traverse 360 degrees in just 24 seconds, independent of the engine RPM. At 55 miles per hour, the M18 could cover 400 meters before a German tank's turret could even traverse 90 degrees. This transformation began in December 1941, following the devastating success of German blitzkrieg tactics. Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce, a cavalryman, understood the value of speed. He proposed that instead of matching German tanks ton for ton, America would build a vehicle that hunted tanks through speed, surprise, and superior mobility. The resulting tank destroyer force would operate under a simple motto: seek, strike, destroy. German intelligence, when they learned of American tank destroyer development, dismissed it as typical American naiveté. Wehrmacht doctrine, proven in years of combat, insisted that effective tank destroyers required heavy armor. The idea that Americans would field a 17.7-ton vehicle with armor no thicker than 25 millimeters seemed militarily absurd. The first true encounter occurred during the Anzio breakout on May 23, 1944. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division reported to the 14th Panzer Corps. Enemy employs new tank destroyer type, vehicle speed estimated 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. 2 Panzer IVs destroyed before enemy vehicle withdrew. Return fire ineffective due to target's rapid movement. German crews reported vehicles moving like nothing in their recognition manuals, but these reports reached Berlin, where they were filed as unconfirmed and likely exaggerated. September 1944 brought the full, devastating revelation. Hitler personally ordered a counterattack to recapture Nancy. The 5th Panzer Army assembled its best units, the 111th and 113th Panzer Brigades, equipped with factory-fresh Panthers. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, attached to the 4th Armored Division, positioned their M18s around Arracourt. As dawn broke on September 19th, the German attack developed in heavy fog. Lieutenant Edwin Leiper's platoon of M18s struck with devastating precision. Employing shoot-and-scoot tactics, his platoon destroyed 15 enemy tanks in approximately 30 minutes of combat. Sergeant Henry R. Hartmann's M18 achieved extraordinary success, with his gunner knocking out 6 Panthers in rapid succession, each time displacing to a new firing position before the German tanks could return fire. The 113th Panzer Brigade's losses were catastrophic. German divisional records reported losses: 39 tanks destroyed, 11 damaged. Enemy vehicles demonstrated unprecedented mobility. When German forces finally captured an intact M18 near Metz in November 1944, their technical examination confirmed the terrifying reality. They verified the maximum speed of 88.5 kilometers per hour on the test track. The power-to-weight ratio of 22.6 horsepower per ton from the air-cooled radial aircraft engine was superior to the Panther's 15.6. The automatic torque-matic transmission eliminated manual clutching, allowing the driver to concentrate entirely on maneuvering. The German report concluded that the vehicle achieved its performance through an extreme design philosophy where armor was sacrificed for mobility. The German turret-turret traverse speeds, which were dependent on engine RPM, simply could not match the M18's consistent hydraulic traverse of 15 degrees per second. A Panther needed 30 to 60 seconds just to complete a 180-degree turret traverse when tracking a moving target. At its top speed of 55 miles per hour, an M18 could cross a 1,000-meter killing field in 41 seconds. The M18's deployment revolutionized American anti-tank tactics. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion's manual emphasized mobility over direct firepower exchange. The recommended sequence was to fire 3 to 5 rounds from a concealed position, immediately displace a minimum of 200 yards, and re-engage from a new angle. Crews were never to remain stationary longer than 60 seconds. This shoot-and-scoot doctrine proved devastatingly effective, as German tank crews trained for methodical engagements could not adapt to opponents who refused stand-up fights. The M18's true value in a holding action was demonstrated on December 19, 1944. The 2nd Panzer Division, spearheading the drive towards Antwerp, approached the crucial crossroads at Noville. 4 M18s from the 609th and 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion faced overwhelming odds. The morning fog that had concealed German movements now became the Hellcat's ally. The M18s used high-speed displacement between firing positions, creating the impression of a much larger defensive force. The 4 Hellcats confirmed the destruction of 24 enemy tanks. They would fire 2 or 3 rounds, then immediately reverse at full speed into the fog. By the time German tanks traversed their turrets towards the muzzle flashes, the M18s had relocated 200 to 300 yards and were engaging from a completely different angle. The 2nd Panzer Division's war diary recorded that they encountered strong tank destroyer resistance at Noville, unable to effectively engage due to rapid displacement of targets. Attack suspended pending reinforcement. This 48-hour delay proved critical, allowing the 101st Airborne to reinforce and ultimately hold the vital Bastogne crossroads. The M18 Hellcat then entered the final phase of the war, being identified by German tank crews on their increasingly inaccurate recognition charts. Despite its provocative nickname, the Hellcat, the M18 was not technically a tank, but rather a tank destroyer, and this distinction had profound tactical consequences. By November 1944, German commanders were desperately trying to develop tactics to counter the M18. General Hasso von Montefel issued tactical guidance to his army. Do not attempt to track moving M18 with turret traverse. Pre-position turrets on likely displacement routes. Avoid pursuit. M18s will always outrun our vehicles. But these adaptations proved largely ineffective because the speed advantage was simply too great, and German crews could not overcome years of training that emphasized deliberate, precise gunnery. The M18 was designed for mass production from the start. Its production used the air-cooled radial engine already in production for aircraft and other vehicles. The automatic torque-matic transmission eliminated complex driver training. The open-topped turret simplified manufacturing. Each M18 cost $55,230 in 1943, significantly less than a German Panther, which cost approximately 117,100 Reichmarks and required complex production time. The Tank Destroyer Training Center at Camp Hood, Texas, developed specialized programs for M18 crews, focusing on high-speed maneuvering and rapid target acquisition. Commanders were trained to think 3 moves ahead, always planning their next 2 firing positions before engaging. The psychological profile for M18 crews sought men comfortable with risk and able to make instant decisions, who preferred agility over the psychological comfort of heavy armor. The M18's greatest weakness was, of course, its paper-thin armor. With maximum protection of just 25 mm on the turret front and 13 mm on the hull sides, the vehicle was vulnerable to almost every German anti-tank weapon. This vulnerability shaped every aspect of its use, emphasizing the need to never remain stationary under enemy observation. M18 crews developed an almost supernatural awareness of their surroundings, constantly scanning for threats and escape routes. The high crew survival rate of 73% when the vehicle was destroyed reflected the vehicle's speed, as crews could often escape even when their M18 was hit. By the war's end, M18-equipped tank destroyer battalions compiled impressive records, with the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion claiming 106 enemy tanks. The overall kill-to-loss ratio in Europe was 2.3 to 1. The M18's combat record profoundly influenced post-war armored vehicle development. While the tank destroyer doctrine was abandoned, the Hellcat's demonstration that mobility could substitute for armor resonated globally. Modern wheeled tank destroyers, like the Italian Centauro and the American M1128 mobile gun system, represent the M18's conceptual descendants. They accept vulnerability for strategic and tactical mobility. German forces, renowned for tactical innovation, could not effectively counter the M18 due to their doctrinal rigidity. Their crews spent years perfecting long-range shooting techniques that were useless against rapidly displacing targets. Furthermore, their turret traverse systems, dependent on engine RPM, were unable to match the M18's consistent hydraulic traverse. The psychological shock of suddenly becoming prey rather than predator cannot be underestimated. M18 veterans consistently emphasized speed as their primary survival tool. Staff Sergeant Vernon Miller of the 85th Tank Destroyer Battalion stated, "We lived by 3 rules: shoot fast, move fast, think fast." Private First Class Robert Chen of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion put it simply, "That speed saved my life more times than any armor could have." The M18 Hellcat stands as one of World War II's most innovative combat vehicles. It challenged fundamental assumptions about armored warfare. The Hellcat's 55 mph top speed was a paradigm shift that German tactical doctrine simply couldn't accommodate. It proved that battlefield dominance could be achieved through mobility rather than mass. At 55 mph, it outran not just German tanks, but German military doctrine itself. The M18 Hellcat, 55 mph of American audacity, remains proof that in warfare, speed can be the ultimate weapon. German tankers never knew the American Hellcat could reach such speeds, and by the time they learned, it was already too late.